Howdy folks, and welcome in to SMITE Summer Masters. It's day number 3 here. You got Dimes, you got Alpha Jackal. Alpha Jackal just witnessed the end of North America's chances here at SMITE Masters. The Wargs taking it 2-0 over their opposition.
Yeah, it was a close set. I mean, the Netherland Wargs didn't make things look particularly easy for themselves, but at the very end, they got the job done, which is all they needed to do to secure themselves 2 more games here at Masters. They have 1 later today, and of course, at least 1 set tomorrow as well, depending on how they place.
Well, AJ, let's take a look here at the bracket and see how the rest of day 3 is going to shape up. You got Jade Dragons there moving on through, Gilded Gladiators and the Eldritch Hounds waiting to see who their competition is going to be. But here, Alpha Jackal, coming up next. The bottom part of that bracket there, the Atlantis Leviathans and the Styx Ferrymen. It's going to be our next set of the day.
Yeah, this should be a very, very interesting set. I mean, Atlantis Leviathans, they do like to play for the team fights. They do like to play, the early game. They can play the late game if needs be. And then over on the other side, the Styx Ferrymen. You wouldn't back them in a team. You would back them in a team fight. Sorry, hand over fist, pretty much against anybody.
I mean, looking at these 2 squads, obviously our second SPL match of the day, right? You start off the day with SPL, transition into SCC. We're back to SPL. Kind of an SPL quick 2-0 stomp out of the Dragons from the Kings. Much tighter there in game number 2. I could easily see this one with 2 stacked rosters going to a game 3.
Oh yeah, 100%. If this doesn't go to a game 3, I think both teams will be disappointed. I think both of them are coming here expecting 3 games. I think both of them here are expecting a nice, tight competition from the 2 of them. But that all depends on how scrims have been going, and obviously we're not privy to that.
Expectations are high. Let's check out the expectations from Cyno of the Styx Ferrymen. Dave standing by.
Cyno, we got you back in studio. It's been a couple weeks. What have the boys been up to? We saw you win during playoffs. Little downtime, and now you're back for Masters.
Yeah, honestly, it's felt like a while since the last time we were in studio, but, we've just been scrimming, grinding the new patch, trying to figure out the meta,
How about the new patch? Because through the meat of this weekend so far, it's been a lot of SEC teams playing off against one another. We've seen one SPL v SPL matchup. From your perspective, does the SEC play the game differently than maybe how we expect the SPL teams to play it later on this weekend?
I mean, for us personally, I definitely think the SEC had a different meta than we had in scrims last week. Especially last week, I think. I don't want to say too much about how it was different, but it was definitely different than our meta.
Does the Cyno meta differ from the rest of the jungle meta that we've seen this weekend?
I got it. Yeah, I mean, kind of always, but I think jungle meta is actually pretty. It's pretty consistent across both metas, I'd say.
Well, and you said you spent a couple weeks scrimming as a team. What were some of the goals? What were some of the focus points from the Styx Ferrymen from playoffs going into this event? What were some of the pain points you thought you might have that you want to polish up for this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we were pretty disappointed in our playoff performance, so me especially. But our focus during the scrims this week was just work on our early game, get the early game figured out, and then we're confident in our team fight, so we just got to work on the early game.
You guys versus Leviathan should be a fun one. Thanks for your time, Cyno. The desk will take it from here.
AJ, we just heard from Cyno from the Styx Ferrymen, and now we're tasked with talking a little bit about the Ferrymen, and I'm just looking at the roster here. This seems like an impossible task to choose. I mean, Paul, one of the best mid laners to ever touch the game. You've got the combination of Aror and CycloneSpin in the duo lane who've been doing it together all the way back since the Splice days. Baskin in that conversation for maybe best mechanical player of all time. And then, of course, the interviewee himself, Cyno, rounding out this squad.
I mean, this roster is stacked with world champions through and through.
Literally.
I mean, Cyno and Paul definitely have shown that they have been MVPs at once and received that reward as well. Baskin doesn't have one, but is considered probably the best player, as you mentioned, mechanically of all time. We're definitely in that conversation. And we can't not talk about the coach as well. Reels coming in as their coach
absolutely.
as well. I mean, he's been one of the predominant players out of EU back when it was back Season 1, Season 2. So he still has that experience coming through to help steady the ship here for the Styx Ferrymen.
Especially looking at Cyno here coming out of the jungle. So far from what we've seen out of SMITE Masters, seen the Naja picked up a couple times, seen some things like the Erlong Shen, a couple of hyper carries, the Kali. It's exactly what Cyno's looking to pick up in that jungle role.
Yeah, I mean, the Erlong Shen is probably the one which I would say speaks to him the most. And if anybody is going to make it work, it is going to be Cyno. The other person I said would have made it work would have been Captain Twig, but
Sure.
not the best performance on it earlier today, as they did get swept aside 2-0 in our first matchup of the day. But Cyno definitely does like to play those warrior jungles, likes to play a little bit different in terms of the meta, as we saw Dave hit the Cyno meta in terms of the jungle, and he is playing the Naja as well, which we also have seen, so I'm expecting a few target bans to go up here against Cyno.
And you know, someone else in the squad who really piques my interest here, AJ, is Aror. I mean, all through competitive Smite, Aror knowing for some of these stranger pocket picks. You got the warrior supports, of course. Can't forget about the Fenrir support that Aror popularized many seasons ago. We've kind of seen the stock standard supports here at Smite Masters. You've got the Atlases now, but the Terras, the Emojis, things like that. Think we'll see anything out of spicy out of the mathematician here in Aror?
I don't think we'll see anything too spicy, but I think we might see more of a prevalence towards Kraken, like you mentioned, as the aggressive support. His Atlas will probably up there as well. But as much as it would be Cyno picking something up that we haven't seen before for the jungle, if we haven't seen anything from the support role, Auror's going to be the one to show us it.
Now, AJ, I want to transition now to talk about the boys on the Levi roster. Struggling a little bit in the beginning of this season here. I think just looking on its face at this roster, expectations are pretty high for the Levi's as well. But start over in the solo lane, fineokay. Right? Last year, Smite Masters taking the King Arthur and things of that nature into the solo lane and dominating. King Arthur seen plenty of play here, but specifically looking at that tier, I'm just curious how fineokay is going to dominate with it.
Yeah, I'm expecting fineokay to be the player of this tournament. If it is going to be the Atlantis Leviathans that go on and win it all, it's going to be off the back of fineokay, playing on that King Arthur, playing on that tier, and then also in the jungle, adapting. The King.
The King.
He's back in Smite, bro, and he's been showing exactly why he is still revered as the best jungler around. I mean, you can't put any game past him here, can you? I mean, every single pick that we have seen has been a carry-style pick that adapting has in his wheelhouse. The Thor specifically, it has been monstrous. He's going to pick Thor and have it banned for the rest of the tournament.
It's not just the Thor, right? We might see the Fenrirs. We might see obviously Cyno's going to go toward the Naja, but things like the Susanoo and any kind of hyper carry, the Kalis, right? Maybe even taking a set into a jungle.
Ao Kuang.
Ao Kuang. How could I absolutely forget about adapting to Ao Kuang? All of these hyper carry late game style junglers with Zapman calling the shots over there in the duo lane, adapting can set it up for the carry.
Yeah, we've talked about the solo side. We haven't even talked about the 3-time back-to-back-to-back world champion in Zapman. This roster is completely stacked, and behind them you can see sitting there behind Sheento in mid, that is Coach Slaney. One of the best coaches around, I'd say, really does know what he's talking about in terms of picks and bans, in terms of strategies. This is a roster which, when it's at its full potential, can win worlds very easily.
Literally a world champion roster, as Zapman has shown previously. Some great plays here coming out of the coach, excuse me, not the coach, the ADC here in Zapman. And for the rest of the meta, I mean, Sheento's God Pool is whatever the opposite of a puddle is, right? An ocean, a vast sea. Sheento can dip into anything in that middle lane. And then Ronngyu is probably going to be playing these more traditional supports. I mean, Rongyu's Umoja is one to be witnessed.
Yeah, I think when the support meta was these very aggressive supports, we saw a little bit of a struggle here from Ronngyu. But now that we've gone straight back towards these traditional supports, like you mentioned, the Umoja, sometimes the Atlas, I think that's where we're going to be seeing him play at his best.
And as we're getting into picks and bans here, AJ, right off the rip, are there any particular target bans do you think have to come out from either of these sides? I mean, the first one that pops into my mind is going to be the Naja, right? You got to get Cyno off of that Naja. But is there any other pocket picks as we head into P's and B's here for game number 1 that just immediately got to go?
I mean, for me, it's not any pocket picks that have to go. It's just the traditional picks. Get tier off the table.
Oh, big time.
Whoever's had tier has almost won 2/3 of the time, and you can't give somebody that statistical advantage. But looks like the Leviathans agree with you straight away. Naja not being able to be given to Cyno.
Taken off the board immediately, and a shot back there at the jungler. It's going to be an AK, so 2 jungle picks off the board here. And these bans are ripping through quickly here, AJ, as Zhonghui is wiped off the board as well.
And then it's going to be the Emoji in response here by the Styx Ferrymen. So a little bit of a difference in meta as we see the set being taken off the table too. Some target bans across the board definitely. And don't forget, this is SPL level that we are seeing here today in this matchup. So far this weekend, we have been seeing SCC, which has had a little bit of practice against the lower end of the SPL in scrims. So this is where we're going to be seeing what the top level meta really is. So the differences so far seem to be few and far between, just a few picks.
Now, this is a tough one. #1 overall pick, Marty. No surprise there. The reason I say it's a tough one is because it's been banned pretty much every single game, because when it's let through, it's dominated the mid lane.
I'm surprised we didn't see Hachiman as the top pick. I mean, so far across the board, every single ADC really is thought as Hachiman as being sort of the top ADC. But as you mentioned, it's probably that flexibility pick that the Martichoras brings. That means that in a pick and ban situation, you would value the Martichoras over this Hachiman.
So probably maybe a Hachiman pick up here for the Styx Ferrymen. Only Yamoja banned out, so Terra still on the table. We've seen the Maui taken into the support role pretty effectively as well. Atlas picked up in that Jade Dragons Camelot King set earlier today. So support's kind of got a little bit to play with here. But in terms of top tier ADCs, probably dwindling down.
Yeah, definitely. I want to see the Hachiman taken up. I want to see the Rom as well potentially taken up here as one of the 2 picks as well. And then he's picked all top 3 ADCs. Otherwise, you have to go dip down further towards maybe the On-Her afterwards.
Well, notably here, Amus and Cobb has not been banned out. It got banned 100% in the earlier SPLC set, rather. So, I mean, Amus and Cobb, sure, Marty probably going towards the middle lane, but some potential there. And me and you, we talked about my love of the Elephant getting second picked overall for the Styx Ferrymen here in Game 1.
Yeah, I think it's just because of that silence field. Just means that Martichoras has to expand beads before he can take off or get any form of safety. Anybody else they try and go onto in the mid lane has to use their beads before safety because of that silence field. It's such a potent tool, as well as good peel potential for the backline. This could speak to me that the Styx Ferrymen are looking to pick up something that's risky in the mid lane that needs this constant pressure of peel.
And of course, I mean, how could we just completely skip over the Thor?
Yeah.
Pick up for the King adapting in the jungle. Thor, the mascot of SMITE since, 10 years ago, and is now still seeing play here in the SPL. Put it in the hands of one of the best to ever do it. It's going to be an Aphrodite and the dreaded tier in return for the Atlantis Leviathans.
Yeah, the tier pickup here for the Atlantis Leviathans, so that's going to go the way of fineokay. Be interesting to see how he pilots this one. We know how he pilots the King Arthur. We know that he's one of the best to do it with the King Arthur or the Cucullin, but now playing on the tier instead. Hell is going to make things very difficult for him to engage, but also that fits the bill of what we were thinking about in that mid lane. I mean, pulls Hell. Not too much to talk about there. It is just bread and butter for him.
Unbelievable. And it's kind of crazy it didn't get banned away. We've seen these healers be so potent on the Hell and the Aphrodite, things like that. So immediately goes into the hands of one of the Hell specialists here in the SPL. Paul pickup as bans just ripping through. It looks like the Leviathans and the Ferrymen have their game plans down pat. They know exactly what they're taking and know exactly, more importantly, what they're taking off the board. Habwa and Baka gone. Erlong Shin, Ravin knocked off the table as well. Now we're starting to dip a little bit lower in the ADC tier list. Cernunnos still going to be serviceable in the hands of Zapman.
I mean, again,
Cyclone.
This just speaks to me of peel. I mean, look at the composition they've drafted so far. Hell and Ganesh will peel for each other consistently, and then the Cernunnos on top of that will provide the Wild Hunt for a Polymorph. Remember, Polymorph unaffected by DRs. It's one of the few things which is unaffected by DRs. Now, we talked about the fact that the SPL is different meta. I did not think we were going to go this different, as the Kali is locked in instead of the Arachne. Okay.
I felt frogs seizing up in the other room.
We can breathe a sigh of relief, but the Soul pickup here.
Interesting.
That is definitely not something we expected. This is very basic attack-based focus from the Atlantis Leviathans. In fact, the CC here, the AoE CC, only comes out from 2 places.
And with the Ratatoskr rounding out the Styx Ferrymen, certainly going toward the solo lane there. I mean, there's some flexibility, right? We know that Baskin can certainly take Thor into the solo lane. You put Rat in the jungle, but I feel like Adapting would much rather like to get his hands on the Thor in the jungle, but flip-flop there. I mean, the Soul, right? Mid lane, Marty in the ADC role. Is there some flexibility there? Is it pretty telegraphed?
I think Sheento would prefer to have the Soul rather than the Martichoras. But then again, the Martichoras probably has a better teamfight potential. The Soul has better push in that dual lane. I think a comfortable placing in either place, really. So the Aphrodite is going to be who's going to be locked in that support role. The Aphrodite plus Soul push beats out Ganesh and Cernunnos 10 times out of 10, so they're going to be set under tower. the hell will be a little bit more exposed for the Martichoras to potentially look to gank, but that cleanse up against this Kali, up against this, Ratatoskr Kali matchup that we've got going on in the jungle, this hell is pivotal to how this game's going to go.
Are you concerned at all? You mentioned the auto-attack heaviness of the Atlantis Leviathans adapting on the Kali, Soul, Marty, obviously. Does that concern you at all? Maybe a little bit too easy to shut down come late game?
I don't think it's the easiest thing to shut down. I think they may struggle to kill the Ratatoskr if it does go into the solo lane, and it does build into a very tanky playstyle of build where he does get the Acorn that allows him to use Flurry twice and take the protections for himself. He'll get a Midgardian Mail, he'll get a Witchblade as well. So all the basic attacks going on to him will be almost useless to really try and take down this Rat.
Now, just holistically, it's game number 1, single elim. Right, this is a 1 best of 3. It's a winner take all. Loser goes home here, Alpha Jackal. If we're just taking a cohesive look at both of these squads, is there one you're really throwing your hat in the ring in for?
Ooh, I'm thinking I'm going to favor the Ferrymen in this draft, mainly because I think their CC is a little bit more confirmable. I think their peel on the backline is a little bit better than what the Atlantis Leviathans have. However, if the game gets to 35 minutes, the Leviathans composition will almost run through the Styx Ferrymen.
Now, more importantly, here, Alpha Jackal, for us and for the fans at home, Jade Dragons treated the Camelot Kings to a pretty brutal 2-0 thrashing, kind of choked out the Camelot Kings there and sent the world champions packing. Do you think the Styx Ferrymen and the Atlantis Leviathans take us to a Game 3 here?
They should 100% take it to a Game 3. I think if it's not a Game 3, the team that wins will be a little bit disappointed, and the team that loses will feel like they have come in underprepared, which neither of these teams will be.
Well, AJ, there's only one way to know. Let's throw it right into the game with an incredible pair of casters. We've got Dave, and we got Gore.
One of the two of us is incredible, Gore. And I'll let you decide who it is.
Yeah, it's you.
No, it's you.
I've done been known.
Gore, I bow out to you every single day of the week. Leviathans versus Styx Ferrymen, and it's our second SPL v SPL match here at SMITE. Masters, Doug, along with us for the ride. 57% of chat going to the Leviathans. And look, Gore, the Leviathans, they got hot at the right time over the playoff event, coming into this this event now, the real one, the big one, with maybe heightened expectations.
Honestly, I feel like two teams that I'm really interested in but cautious about, right? I think the Leviathans were able to absolutely look menacing the last time we got to see them. I also think, given what we've seen out of Tier this tournament, and the fact that Adapting's name next to Kali strikes fear in me, and I'm not even in the game. I feel like they've got that energy about them right now, right? I think there were a lot of people, even afterward, right, they get the win. You see a bunch of tweets saying the king is back, Adapting's like going to be here. I want to see that level of performance again, but I want them to bring it every game, right? It's not just, hey, this game, next game, then you're on to the semis, you can see what you can do. I want to see that for the next 2 weeks and the rest of the year. I want to see that level of performance. The Ferrymen are in a weird spot, though, because they have some of the wildest, strong games we've seen.
Yep.
And also some of the wildest period games that we've seen, where you were playing like an Opwash support and trying to figure things out. We talked to them. They said, we're just trying to figure out the meta, try some things out, see where it's at. And I think they figured out some of it. I think that trying to figure out the rest of it has definitely been trying to line up. But I always love seeing Paul on Hell. I love seeing Cyno on Assassins. And I think that they've put themselves into a good spot to at least try and control what they need to control on the Leviathans. And a lot of that's going to be adapting.
I think Aror, I'm thinking back to that Opwash game. And I shouldn't. He wouldn't want me to. Aror wouldn't want me to.
I can hear him saying no.
Please, no. I think Aror just wanted to play Outwash in that game, and that's just that. This Styx Ferrymen team, the conversation has always been, it was last year, it was the year before, under the Titans banner. It's a team that'll have middle-of-the-road regular seasons, and then they turn it on for the playoff events. They turn it on for the tournament events. Now's the time. Cyno dashes forward, eats a stun, gets no damage into Adapting or Sheento over on the other side. And so I say that in an effort to highlight we're here. We've arrived. You got a best of 3. Either you're moving on or you're going home. And so it's time for the Styx Ferrymen to officially arrive and clean up some of the meta conversations we've been having around this team. I talked to Cyno in the pregame interview. He really highlighted the early game as the focus for the Styx Ferrymen over the last couple of weekends. Clean it up. Let's not get into the mid-game fighting back from a big deficit. Let's just put ourselves in a relatively comfortable spot. Avoiding adapting will help you on your way. Paul has to use the beads, but has turned around a decent chunk of damage into adapting. Cyno a bit late, but you got 2 half-health targets wandering away from the health trade in mid.
Yeah, the team for the Leviathans and what we just saw in mid, that little bit of trade, and specifically the damage Sheento was able to output, is maybe the biggest thing to worry about. The longer this game goes, the better Kali's going to be. The better the Aphrodite is going to be. Right now, this is still an Aphrodite, no ult. It's just a mage that you could go jump on and kill pretty easily. With this kind of start, and considering the way things have been going, it's not like there's a lot of return damage. The survivability is pretty minimal because the healing should be relatively low. But as the game goes on, suddenly you're giving some prots to whoever you're kissed to. You've got plenty of people to attach to in this game that you're going to feel comfortable with. I mean, most of the time, at least early. Zapman makes sense. Sheento, maybe later, makes sense. But adapting's going to be through and through. We're talking about a Kali that's going to have 3 lives, right? 1 to jump in with, 1 after your ult, and then 1 with an Aphrodite ult. And as long as you kill a target in that time, you're going to get a massive heal and be able to keep going. And so what you lack maybe in some of the tankiness, because it's still a mage, right? Yes, you're still going to be able to pick up some of those items that make you harder to kill off, but you're still going to be a late-game Aphrodite. We talked a lot during Phase 1 about Aphrodite's win rate when not played by, like, 2 specific. It was Hurry and Jake. Anybody else that picked her up, it was like 29% for a while. And so Ronngyu definitely has, I think, a little bit to prove based on just the Aphrodite. But what the team lacks in tanky, they make up for in will just kill you potential between Zap, especially late game, what a Soul is able to do, or tower pushing wise. But adapting in Sheento, I mean, you're talking about a 1-2 punch that could just eliminate 3 members of the Ferrymen, maybe in the blink of an eye. If Aror or a Baskin can't peel, or if there's no stun from Cyno to stop it, you could just die.
Yep, agreed. This late game pivot point for the Leviathans going to be strong. But then you look at the Ferryman gore. I'm looking at Cyno. He's got big semi-global ultimate. Guess who else has one? Baskin. And so I'm thinking double dunks in a lot of these team fights. And if Aurora is able to corral a couple members of the Leviathans,
Yeah.
you're talking about dunks that could... You know what? I've been working with Myth for years, and I still don't know the difference between efficacy. They would have increased efficiency if they're corralled by Aurora and the Dharmic Pillars, or would they have increased efficacy? TBD. One way or the other. You get the point, though. They could be better if Aurora corrals a couple members of the Leviathans in with those Dharmic Pillars, Cyno, Baskin suddenly dunking in. And our gears are turning here, chat. We're trying to figure out.
Increased efficiency
Is what I was going to say.
Yeah, efficacy doesn't work there in a sentence.
Right. I think if they had done something, you then say it had an increased efficacy in that fight. It was it's looking back at it.
Yeah.
Is how I'm gonna that's how I'm gonna think about it. We're casters. We should know how words work. But I do say
to Words with Gore and Dave.
Yeah, and I'm sorry you're not going to learn much.
Our show within a show.
And you're not going to learn much, unfortunately. I do say that is a way of highlighting, I think, what could be a really strong point of the Styx Ferrymen draft.
I agree.
But I am concerned about this Leviathan's late game, and so if the Styx Ferrymen are trying to put this emphasis, and they have put emphasis for the last 2 weeks on early game, I mean, you want to be getting into that late game with a decent little lead because a Kali, a Marty, a Soul, and then +1 on any of those 3.
Yes.
+2 or 3 potentially on adapting, depending on when he uses his ultimate. I don't know if the Ferrymen want to be fighting from behind.
This is a team, the Leviathans. I think if it's even, or, I mean, God forbid, ahead by the time they hit, let's say, 20 minutes, that's just a good marker. This is a team that if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. I mean, Sheento, Zapman together should absolutely shred any tower that stands in their way. And Sheento adapting should shred anything that stands in their way. I mean, adapting's already has the Golden Blade online, so farm right now is just jumping through the roof. It's going to allow him to clear a lot better, get a lot more farm. He's actually fallen a little bit behind Cyno, which is honestly a big deal. Cyno right now has that advantage. Ratatoskr early game. Kali has shifted. We've definitely seen some level 3 Kalis make things happen, but you're still a late game hyper carry. Rat needs to get some work done soon. Because as we've seen, towards late, you get Baskin, he's going to ult, he's going to have some CC, maybe a little bit of damage. Ratatoskr, depending on the build, depending on where he lands, a lot of the time is dunk and hope you don't die, right? You're going to get the knock up. Maybe you're in the 1v1, you get the good setup, and that's exactly what you need, but maybe you're not in the 1v1 and they just stun you and kill you. So you really have to be I think, on point. Unfortunately for Cyno, I mean, watching where his rotations have been, he hasn't really been given the opportunity to get hands-on just yet. Now, maybe something could happen if he goes over towards right, but there's an Aphrodite over there. Zapman's got immunity. Sheento, as long as he has ult, can just get out of trouble. And so there's a lot of things that I think are just going to slow him down.
You would think.
He's going to try.
He's up and over, and an Undying Glove. Well timed by, I was going to say Zapman. It's on Zapman, by Ronngyu. And there's also some disengage in the Soul Kit as well. With the disapparate, you can get out of there. But I admire the attempt from Cyno. At least shows an aggressive mental. And I kind of joked with Cyno. I'm leaning on this pregame interview a lot. And I was like, yeah, does the Ferryman meta feel different from the meta of the rest of the teams? Does the Cyno meta feel different from the rest of the teams? And then I said, well, always is, right? But Ratatoskr might not be that first pick that's reached for Gore, but this does feel a bit more straightforward in the jungle than some of the other creative outlets that Cyno's been looking for.
There are other junglers in the league that if you said, if you told me Ratataskr's in the jungle, I'm going to probably say Captain Twig, right? Immediately assuming that it's someone on the Kings. And so that you're at least in line with some of the other squads is a huge deal. As opposed to like the Surters, your Nikes. He's able to get more hands-on, get stuff done, but when your ult's down, you're just not able to be as efficient.
It's a Gold Fury pull and confirmed by the Leviathans. The Dharmic Pillar is just a bit off, but uh-oh. Rongyu's low. Does not have Undying Love. Get Back just gets used as well. Aror's already used Dharmic Pillar, so not much more chase down to be had over on left. It's an aggressive, clean, early call from the Leviathans. Sustain out of Ronngyu. Oh, keep himself and Zapman healthy.
Wow.
Goodness, Zapman's beginning to turn and burn on this fight. Adapting.
They've got adapting.
He is here. Chainsaw revved up.
Blink.
Adapting. Has the blink, doesn't use it. Love the look, though, from the Leviathans. Try to catch the Ferryman on the back foot.
And I really like the way they play that, more so because you're making a call early on. You know your team has Shred, and you know you're safe. I mean, we were talking about the Aphrodite. If Zapman's beads are used at any point, then I have to see disapparates down or he wasn't able to get it off, and Rongyu's not around, doesn't have the ult. There's so many scenarios to get to just the one relic, not even counting eventually when he hits 12 and presumably picks up an Aegis. So you've got so much leeway on the Leviathans in terms of safety, and you've got a lot of Shred. I mean, what does Marty bring? What does Soul bring? What does a Kali bring? It is kill potential, but that really does, at least for the first two mentioned there, Sheento and Zap, apply to towers and apply to neutral objectives, the big bosses in the jungle. So go for the Gold Fury. And I love calls like that because if we've been talking about the fact that the Ferrymen are trying to play early game, I see Rat feels a little more early game, and Cyno's not getting active, then force them to feel awkward, force them to make plays that they just can't do too much with. They try to get aggressive. I think they stole the green buff, and we can see it's still sitting there, grayed out. But that's such a small consolation prize in comparison to the Gold Fury. It hasn't amassed them this crazy massive lead that maybe you would want, but I think for the Leviathans it shows a mentality more than what you get from the Gold Fury itself here. I won't be surprised if they're going to try to do something similar around the Pyromancers. Zapman is one of the more prone to rotate hunters and carries that we have in the league. So right now he's playing Soul. Maybe he hangs out AFKs in lane for a little while. I'm also not going to be too surprised if he ends up showing up right at the Pyromancer spawn the minute the Leviathans need him.
Yeah, Soul seems like a pick that is also prone to overheating, Gore. And that's a good one by me. You get there, you hit
Are you like proud of that though?
No, I'm not. That is the lowest. That is the lowest.
Because I don't know what you mean.
That fruit is so low hanging, it's fallen off the tree and it's rotting on the ground. Wondered though with these magical ADCs with the ring changes.
Yeah.
A couple buffs, we'd start seeing them more this weekend. Seen one here or there. Have not been the overwhelming favorites, but as we talked to some of the pros about the SPL pros. SPL team meta might differ a bit from what we've seen in the SEC, and at least for now, Zapman likes the look of this Soul. Shoguns from Ronngyu. You're fighting around. Think about it. A Marty, a Kali, a Soul. Shoguns is going to help out plenty in that regard. So in 30 seconds, Gore, we're going to get maybe the first big grouping objective, because if we're talking about SPL meta, think back to the set we had earlier today between Kings and Dragons. Felt like the moment the Stygian Beacon spawned over in mid, it was a 5v5, we're stacking on it. We never saw the big brawl at 12 minutes, but it did seem like both teams wanted to be present. For now, it's the Styx Ferrymen who have 3 here. Got to imagine the Leviathans at least slightly rotate in. but maybe not. The Styx Ferrymen might just have all the map control in the world. The Leviathans on the duo lane side of the map seem uninterested. And I'm wrong. Make a terrible pun not 45 seconds ago, and I completely misread how the Leviathans want to play this objective, and the Ferrymen get the Stygian Beacon for free.
So you get a lot with the Stygian Beacon, right? Stacking movement speed as long as you pick up multiple of them.
Yep.
1% each time, which the first one, maybe not a big deal. 5% to structures, though. 5% damage to structures that stacks, again, up to 15%. Can be pretty insane.
Yeah.
The only things I can think are that the Leviathans recognized that they weren't in a good position to really fight for it and didn't really want to. Adapting would like to get more items online as opposed to a Ratatoskr, who right now would love it. If you decide to try and come into this one small circular area, like that's just a free dunk waiting to happen. I also think that this is a squad that, I mean, if you gave them the full 15% bonus damage to structures, I don't think there's anything in the world that could stop them, man. I mean, you could have EFG, and they might still be the ones pushing them down because of how much push potential and tower shred potential that their composition has. But I will say, like, the good thing is that losing that buff doesn't hurt you as much as it could, as much as it helps the Ferrymen. So they get a little bit of a boost. You're not really that much worse off, and you probably avoid a fight that wouldn't have gone your way. You're still stacking Soul Eater. Ronngyu and Zapman were going to be way too late to try and get there because of when their backs were timed. Kali has some damage, but I don't know if I'm looking at a level 12 Kali versus a level 12 Ratatoskr and thinking, you know what, that's a fight I want to pick. And so it feels like something that unless you have a massive rotation from fineokay, I don't mind them letting it go to the wayside. Wouldn't mind seeing, I mean, they've got, 6 minutes before the next one's going to show up, so maybe you can start fighting around then. By then, we're talking another item and a half that are going to be finished. I think they'll be able to start getting a lot more aggressive, forcing the Ferrymen to play a little more cautiously and await the engage that could happen, because by then you're going to start talking about rotations, maybe out of the jungle, but maybe from the solo lane.
Adapting would love to get his hands dirty here in game one. Stun onto Baskin. That'll send up the Anthill of Dawn. Uh-oh, but it's a double dunk in, and they both miss! Adapting hit by 0 out of the 2 ultimates that Baskin and Cyno sent his way. Might not have ended up in a kill anyway, but still a moment Adapting can be proud of. And that's the first time we've seen the double dunk attempt. Goodness gracious. And it's a swing and a miss for the Styx Ferrymen. Now a tier 1 tower siege. Adapting caught on the other side of the wall from his teammates, but Kali's got to jump. She'll get up and over that with ease. Ronngyu for the first time makes their way out of the duo lane. Gory, I mean, I'm wondering, we have mentioned a couple of times about the Ferrymen and the desire for them to get a bit more active a bit earlier because of the shred that the Leviathans will scale into later in the game. I wonder if the opportunity has sort of passed, though. I mean,
yeah.
fineokay at this point, tanky enough and agile enough on the tier, maybe just gets out. Adapting, not easy to catch out in the jungle. Sheento, death from above. If Rongyu's over in duo, you got an undying love. Styx Ferrymen might just have to win this one in a team fight later in the game. Leviathan sent 4 to the Pyromancer. In the meantime, blink forward from Cyno. That catches a stun onto Adapting. The follow-up is there from Baskin as well. Double tap from the hammer, mitigated by Ronngyu and his undying love. The Pyromancer will be reset. Big support ultimate down, however. The Leviathans do not have the Afro ultimate for a little bit of time.
That's a lot of safety from Adapting that's gone as well. Didn't have to use the beats to dodge out either dunk. I mean, he just walks away from Baskin and Cyno, which is beautiful from Adapting. Amazing game sense to be able to do something like that. But then did burn the beads on the wall follow-up afterward. fineokay had a really good play to kind of peel to make sure that Adapting wasn't in too much danger, but it was just in that zone where even with that peel, all it takes is one moment to go wrong, and you could potentially die as a Kali. Giving up first blood 16 minutes into the game could still actually be a pretty big deal. Death timer, the pressure that allows on the map. So beads is after what you would think would force him to drop the beads, but still before maybe it would have been as beneficial or maybe as maximized as possible. The minute you lose Undying Love on top of that in that next engagement around the Pyromancer, Kali has ult, and unless you are preemptively using it, all it takes is one form of CC stray finding you in a fight, and things go downhill incredibly quick. So I like the fact that Leviathans are keeping a presence, but not overcommitting. The downside is again, presence on the map. They do have a sentry ward over here, so they should be able to clear out any wards and fission that the Ferrymen have over the Pyromancer. But we're at that point in a game where it's actually like crucial. Who's picking up objectives? You know, you've only managed to amass about 1,000 gold for Leviathans, which out of neutral farm, you know, maybe 10 minutes ago I'm talking about this as how important it could be. You know, you're talking maybe you've upgraded to tier 2 first, depending on who has it. Right now you're saying, okay, we've got slightly more wards than the other team, some vision, and maybe we can do something with it. And they need to do something with it because the vision they have in pocket isn't on ground, and that's just going to be the freest fury I think I've seen this tournament, maybe this year.
Yep.
I mean, very simple for the Ferrymen to pick up. And the grouping, unfortunately, for the Leviathans wasn't in a spot to get anything out of it.
Oh, what a read from fineokay. Baskin used the hammer
Damage?
to get away from adapting. And Anvil of Dawn will be enough this time from Baskin. Also had to use the beads. However, fineokay blinked in front of that hammer and shoved Baskin back once more. Finally, the tier 1 tower crumbles in solo. The Leviathans have been working on that for a little bit of time. And this pesky Pyromancer pulled and dropped handful of times by both teams. The Stygian Beacon Gore maybe respawning once more. Didn't see a fight over it last time. Simply taken by the Styx Ferrymen for the first charge. Again, the Leviathan, I mean, they have a couple here, but the Styx Ferrymen also only have a couple on this side of the map. And in a 2 versus 2, you're going to contest it, but does not look like either team, except for maybe Cyno, in a big rush to get over here towards mid. Remember, you got to watch out for Baskin, or you would normally. That Anvil of Dawn is still on cooldown, thanks to the gank over in solo a moment ago. Blink forward from Cyno. fineokay is going to gank around the backside of this fight. Sees Paul. But that's hell. That's difficult to catch up with. Stygian Beacon flips sides here, goes back towards the Styx Ferrymen, and confirmed by the Styx Ferrymen once again. So that's now 2 Stygian Beacon buffs for the Ferrymen.
Downside, I was wondering how they were going to handle it. It looked like Leviathans sort of kind of wanted to fight, but couldn't quite land the damage they needed to with healers on both sides. If you're not getting enough burst onto somebody, it's not going to matter. It's going to be healed up in an instant. And so I was watching the minimap thinking maybe adapting was going to go for the Pyromancer while everybody else was fighting over the beacon, pick something up for his team. But it felt like they weren't quite sure how much they wanted to commit to the fight. Now they're going to go for something.
Cyno's up. The Dharmic Pillars
Oh my god!
is fantastic! CycloneSpin on the Wild Hunt sets it all up for his team. And the double dunk is on a different target. But it's a perfect target from the Styx Ferrymen. And now it's all about chase down. Dual lane, the Leviathans is an afterthought. And the mid lane is as well. It's 19.5 minutes score. You're on the side of the map that the FG is on. And in one fell swoop, Dharmic Pillars, Wild Hunt, double dunk, and maybe an FG to go for the Ferryman.
Look, you've still got fineokay and adapting. That's actually a huge deal. Adapting both relics up, has his ultimate available. Fights can go awry when Akali has this, but you only have 2 to work with, and you don't have a lot of safety net. Baskin's doing a great job zoning, but they're not going to let this one just lie.
fineokay does not have ultimate. He's going to have to wander into the Fire Giant pit if he wants to steal here, but Cyno will dash forward, grab a stun, but the Fire Giant not completely leashed by the Styx Ferrymen, and it's confirmed at the exact 20-minute mark by the Styx Ferrymen. And Gore, it's what we set up the team fight to be almost for the Ferrymen earlier on.
Yeah.
Dharmic Pillars corrals, and then the Ferrymen are able to pick off the Leviathans one by one.
And what a beautiful Dharmic Pillars. I mean, that sets up that entire fight. Everybody does a great job, and I think the damage-wise is great. It also feels like the Leviathans... The Ferrymen put the Leviathans in a position where they had to make a decision that was strictly, we need to get something kind of decision. It wasn't, this is a good call. It wasn't anything like that. It was simply, well, they just got a Fury. They just got 2 beacons. We need to get something. And that's the mentality that they really approach that with. Vision wasn't that great. I mean, even now you look over there and it's like, okay, you had like 1 ward kind of deep. It wasn't a solid engagement from them either. They seemed very timid around whether or not they were going to commit to it or not. And so already you were in a good spot. And then you just get a beautiful, beautiful pillars from one side that really helps lock them down. You're looking for maybe even a little more, whether it's zoning or damage. I just think that the ult's usage from Ferrymen was gorgeous in that one. And like you said, at that point you're corralled together, but you're also taking way more damage. Yep. It's just so easy to run them down.
Cyno's starting to swing a bit here in game 1. Sends out a stun. Chunk zaps health down a little bit further. It's funny how the moment and the outcome of a missed double dunk determines entirely how we look at it, which is a bit of a non-statement,
yep.
Right? Because, of course, the double dunk that missed in solo didn't look great, but the one that's sent towards the Leviathans in duo have now opened up this siege, and in the blink of an eye, nearly everything on the left side of the map has crumbled. I didn't even realize the Phoenix was this low. And the Ferrymen have just opened up this door. Zapman's already used his ultimate. Just need a bit more range. Need CycloneSpin to be able to find another auto attack or two, or really anyone at this point, to just send one of those ranged auto attacks into this Phoenix. It'll heal up just a little bit. Ferrymen would love to capitalize. Most important Phoenix of the game, as the Fire Giant buff will fall off here shortly.
I want to see Adapting get involved. We're level 18, level 19 now, Kali. Your team's doing their best to defend. You've got a good loop around. If you can get Cyno, that'd be huge. They have to play it a little cautiously. I do admire the Leviathans, though. While Tier 2 on left was getting pushed, while that Phoenix almost died, and keyword is almost, they did get a Tier 2 in mid, so they made sure they were still proactive on the map, and then they managed to back just in time. It's cost them quite a bit, at least in the duo lane. The Phoenix is still only 2 hits away, but with no back door protections removed, this is still just a regular Fire Giant. You've got to commit hard if you want to fight.
Cyno, he's going to commit. The drop onto Sheento and a knock-up and a Dharmic Pillars sends the Marty off to the side. CycloneSpin, disrupted by fineokay a little bit. Adapting has found the back line, but he's all on his own this time. Baskin is stuck around, cleaned up the Phoenix, and hammered away. And the Styx Ferrymen, they'll group up as 5. The Fire Giant buff falls off here in just a moment. And they will be able to scurry away. And they'll have a left side Phoenix down, presumably for this next Fire Giant siege. The Stygian Beacon Gore, that's something to keep your eyes on as well as now this Gold Fury. Might have a Titan fight here before too long. It's a 3-kill game, Gore, but one that's been action-packed in the last 5 or 10 minutes. And the Ferrymen have really opened things up.
And right now, I mean, we're talking about a Titan fight that's going to spawn over on right. If they manage, depending on when the Fire Giant suddenly comes in, all of a sudden, that's actually a really easy fight to maybe join in, easy to defend, nothing too crazy. And so maybe some work you want to get done on the map. Again, it spawns in the lane that has the most combined structures still up, which, I mean, math's pretty easy. Ooh. 0 + 1 is just 1. Zap might be getting 1 to 0'd right here. It's just the aggression right now from the Ferrymen. The Leviathans don't feel grouped the way they should. Ronngyu's just hung out to dry.
Yeah, we were thinking that the Leviathans' burn at this point in the game would really start to catch up. There's a bit of it. Sheento burns down Aror, but a double stun from Cyno has set up all the rest of this. Another great Dharmic Pillars from Aror, and Cyno makes it happen once more. Up and over goes fineokay, and it's all down to the tier. Adapting's got to go big as well, and Adapting has ultimate. Can he find his target? Aror scurrying away
Good
in the
CC.
wall from Baskin. Helps keep Adapting at bay. And Goremizer, the Ferrymen have found 4. They have an open door, and they might have game 1.
I mean, look, they're just playing better. There's no way to describe it. It's been nothing but grouped fights. That's all we got to see. I am flabbergasted that they're not walking in with this Fire Minion wave in a 1v4. Granted, you don't have Cyclone.
They don't have
so
Cyclone.
You lose a lot of damage there.
Right.
Auror's still low. And you're going to have Zap in 10. So maybe it would have taken too long without the burn. Play it safe. You're going to spawn in a Titan and absolutely slaughter anything that stands in. Fire Giant's going to be up. And this Fire Giant should still be free, right? You could probably just walk from the beacon over there.
Whoa.
Maybe even get a kill onto fineokay. If he gets staggered out, that's going to be devastating.
Fino does have ult. We'll have to use it here. The Stygian Beacon goes down. Baskin went up. I was wondering which of the 2 ultimates we saw hovering in the sky. It was the Thor. He'll just take his talents over to the Pyromancer. Gore, I don't think we were wrong in imagining this shred that the Leviathans were going to have late in this game. We're talking about a Kali, a Marty, a Soul.
We saw some.
Saw a bit of it. Haven't seen enough of it, though. The Ferrymen have been able to disengage kind of the semi-global ults, taking them up.
Yeah.
And then they jump on the Leviathans one by one. Now it'll be, in all likelihood, the second Fire Giant of the game for the Styx Ferrymen. This time fineokay will be here as well. Might have his ultimate, but he won't make the attempt. Fire Giant number 2 to the Styx Ferrymen. A Titan fight on its way, and that you have to consider it. The Titans are out of base. You cannot end the game, but you can kill the opposing team's Titan
and then just
keep
run it
wandering down with your Titan. That's right. We'll see if we get there.
Look, the thing is, I think you have to look at the Leviathans team fights, every single one this game, because we've only had, 8 kills. There's been 3 big fights. One around the Pyromancer that leads to the Fire Giant. And what goes wrong in that one? Well, you've got like 2 to 3 Leviathans on the Pyromancer, and the rest kind of vaguely, sorta in the area, but they're not around. They weren't able to get engaged in time, and so you've got a good grouping from the Ferrymen and a lax grouping from the Leviathans, and that results in trouble. Then what happens around the Phoenix? Well, guess what? You've got a good grouping from the Ferrymen, and then a split grouping from the Leviathans. Some go in to fight, some try to stay back and defend. You lose the Phoenix, you lose the fight, and you don't get any kills. And then finally, you see another grouping, guess what? From the Ferrymen, and here's Ronngyu, there's Zapman, there's Sheento, and then eventually here comes Adapting and fineokay. We just haven't gotten to see the Leviathans fight as 5. I don't know what's going on, but their team fight right now is just off the mark, and the Ferrymen are tearing them apart because of it. I mean, this is a team that's going to absolutely destroy you if you don't have everybody together.
Cyno's up. Baskin is as well. Hello, Sheento and Zapman. It's both carries grouped up on one side of the fight, and it's all of the defensive utility needed. For now, it's enough. Because one kill onto Cyno gets set back, a second onto Baskin, a double kill for Sheento, and that might be enough to keep this game alive for now. Only Zapman gets traded out, but the Ferrymen have gotten what they came for, and it's a right side Phoenix, and the left side Phoenix will respawn, and this Titan siege will be dispelled. Styx Ferrymen press that go button, Gore. They open up the base, but lost their right side of the map.
We're entering a really weird territory. That fight, it's a great showcase, again, of what the Ferrymen have to offer. The fact that you got Zapman and Sheento in the same double dunk, like, I mean, that is absolutely insane. That's a good presence from Baskin, good presence from Cyno. Maybe questionable a little bit from the carries from the Leviathans standing close together when you know that that's the kind of engagement that the Ferrymen have. But we're entering a really interesting period. They've managed to respawn and defend the left side Phoenix. Right side Fire Minions, we've talked about this in the past. It's pretty easy to defend, especially when you're talking about trying to fight for a Fire Giant in the future. Primal Fury is not something you should be dying over, so I'm honestly happy seeing the Leviathans pull back here. We're entering the conversation of a Fire Giant that is going to be enhanced in the next fight, which is going to be a huge deal depending on how the Ferrymen push over the next couple of minutes. Maybe it's in the conversation, maybe it's not. But we're also going to be talking about a level 20, 30-minute in Kali, a level 20 full build Sheento, level 20 full build Zapman. And while we haven't gotten to see a lot of it, that little bit of damage has been impressive. If they can defend here, we might be seeing a turning point for the Leviathans.
Sheento without beads, without Aegis, though. We'll need full
He needs help.
efficiency on that ultimate again. It's double semi-globals. This time, though, it's not quite the impact. Baskin, oh no, he's hit a big wall! It's disastrous for the Leviathans, and it's amazing for the Styx Ferrymen. Suddenly, the left side Phoenix also dealt with this wall, hits just fine yet again. And Baskin has taken this game over. Baskin it! As the Styx Ferrymen are going to run down the remainder of this Titan, and the Styx Ferrymen will take game 1.
They just played so clean. Every single one of those fights was borderline a masterpiece. It was just so well done. I mean, you're talking whether you want to look at the dunks, the engages, even that last one. It felt like it was finally the breakthrough that the Leviathans needed because the dunks didn't connect. And maybe that's the opener that you need. Except that then the wall connects. You get a huge, massive double hammer. You get tons of damage from Baskin that pour out. And in the blink of an eye, you go from, oh, yay, they missed the dunks, maybe we can do something, to, oh my god, where'd our health bars go? 4 people, I mean, almost instantly dead. And there were a lot of things. I still think the Leviathans had a good composition to try and fight. We just never got to see it do anything because the Ferrymen just pick them apart piece by piece every single fight. The first few are just disjointed, very separated. And that last one was just really, really good from Baskin. He hits one wall that stuns 3, and they almost instantly die because of the damage follow-up, and then he puts a second wall to stop you from getting to the fountain. There's nothing you can do about that other than just try to outplay it. He outplayed you. That's all you need to win.
Who are we kidding, Gore? It's tournament time. It's Styx Ferrymen. It's
turned
right
up the
on
heat.
time. That's right. Look, the alarm clock has gone off, and the Styx Ferrymen have arrived. This is a best of 3, an elimination best of 3. And one that the Styx Ferrymen will take game 1 of. Will we go the distance? Find out in game 2 after this.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back in to SMITE Summer Masters here. Just witnessed some great SPL play. The Ferrymen, the Leviathans, SPL. Ferrymen coming on top in game number 1. But before we jump into game number 2, AJ, we got a wonderful event coming at you in just a little bit. The Color Forge event here. It's the Color Forge Prism of Souls event. Got a 10.6, 3,000 gems, 33% off. You want to make sure to buy it fresh at its best value there, AJ.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to customize your skins with many different colors, this definitely is the skin pack for you. As you can see, you customize each skin event with different dyes and different colors. And if you do decide to pick this up, but at a later date, as you can see, the price goes up, so now is better than never.
And you might as well get in on it quick, because I know some of those custom skins you're going to see in game are going to be pretty sick. It almost takes me to the old school days where you have to take little icons and, like old Black Ops days where it takes like a million icons to create your own little custom logo. Enough about that, though. Color Forge, pick it up when you can. AJ, Styx Ferrymen, Atlantis Leviathans. Took a little minute for the action to get going, but once it didn't really stop.
Yeah, about 19 minutes in is when we saw First Blood. We did see some potential for First Blood beforehand, but that First Blood fight, what a fight it was from the Styx Ferrymen. I mean, Dharmic Pillars gets dropped down, and then all of a sudden First Blood happens, and you're thinking, what happened there? As we go into the replay here, this is exactly what happened. The dunk in from Cyno is exactly what caused some panic in the backline, and it was joined on the backline by Baskin. This double dunk semi-global composition really caused issues here for the Leviathans, and then once that dunk happened, they just went back to the safety and healing of a hell.
I'm going to quote here you here, AJ. Baskin making Thor look good with that double dunk, slam down, making it happen, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, especially with Paul's hell. I mean, looking fantastic in the middle lane. We've seen it all weekend long in the mid lane, here today especially. But once you engage with that double dunk, the Ratatoskr and the Thor coming down, you back off, heal up, and get right back in the fray.
I mean, this is exactly what you need to be doing as a solo jungle pairing. Just watch what Baskin and Cyno are doing and copy it. They are going on pretty much the same targets. They are going into the backline at the same time. If they are splitting off, it's for good reason and to make sure they can secure some kills. And then that's without talking about the fact that Aror's Ganesha was what was allowing all of this chaos to happen. The Dharmic Pillars just amplifying some damage in the backline, splitting the fights into 2 zones, meaning that CycloneSpin was safe to do whatever he wanted at the backline. We don't even talk about CycloneSpin, and he's got 17,000 damage, second highest on the team, because of how dominant Baskin was in that backline.
And look at that healing, 15,000 damage
Yikes.
healed up from Hell. I mean, you're always going to put out the damage, but the healing is really where Hell makes her bucks there. And across the other way, is there one particular standout god or player that really needs to step it up here in game number 2 for the Levi's? I think, Tyr. We've seen some weaknesses now exposed here at SMITE Masters, but anyone else that really jumps out at you?
I think it's just the composition as a whole. I mean, as we went into the game, we were a bit undecided about the fact that it had a lack of CC or a lack of area control.
Sure.
And that played a big part in the fact as to why Ratatoskr and why Thor were able to go into the backline and just do as they pleased. If we do go into this second picks and bans phase and they do draft something similar, it will just be a similar game. We'll have a swift 2-0. They do need to change that. They do need to draft in some area control, I feel.
It's elimination time here for the Atlantis Leviathans. Picks and bans for game number 2 coming at you right now. Now, my big question, Magical ADCs, we've seen Olaron banned away a couple times here. How'd you feel about the Soul in the duo lane in game 1?
I think it had potential, but I think we see why the Olaron is overall more valued than the Soul is. Just Olaron just seems better in terms of a teamfight potential as but much more impactful.
Bans coming through here rapidly once again, just as in game number 1. Yamoja and Al Kwong absolutely ripped off the board there. You got to take AK away from adapting. Ganesh going to see a ban here in game number 2 with Hell and the Zhonghui as well. And with those picks being banned, you're leaving plenty on the table here. Eset first overall pick for the Levi's.
Yep, banned by the Levi's in first game, and it's going to be taken up as first pick here. Tyr is still unavailable on the table. Ronngyu was the other ban that we saw out from the Atlantis Leviathans, so I would imagine the Styx Ferrymen could be looking to pick something up there, but it wasn't broke last game, so I don't see any reason why they would change. I mean, the Thor performed phenomenally. I think they picked that up here again and leave it as a flex pick until last pick.
What do you think about potentially picking up an early, say, Terra maybe here or something? Because Aror going to Ganesha last game, now banned and taken off the table. We've only seen a couple of support picks really flourish here so far in Smite Masters. Do you think an early pickup for the support is going to be necessary?
I think it might be necessary if you wanted to lean into the Terra. That's the only contestable pick that I do see.
Sure.
But instead, as I mentioned, the Thor is going to be taken up here as a flex pick. Martichoras taken up as well here for the Ferrymen, so taking that away from the Leviathans. Interested to see whether that does go into mid or whether that is going to be an ADC.
Plenty of options here for the Atlantis Leviathans. I mean, we can kind of theorize here.
Wow.
Set might be heading into the middle lane, could be going to the jungle, but the Ratatoskr pickup, I mean, we still don't really know where that's heading, right? Could be in solo into the jungle as well. So Cyno pop off on it in game number 1. And the Soul reprised here, maybe for Zapman.
Yeah, I mean, interesting to see the Ratatoskr picked up this highly. I mean, we haven't seen it all weekend long. Wow. This is a pick, though. I want to talk about Ratatoskr, but this has just shifted the conversation completely. I see your hand pumps in the air. You're just, you're excited for this one.
Talk about Rat, and we'll get there.
Okay, Ratatoskr. I mean, he not picked all weekend, picked one game so far, and all of a sudden just shoots up in terms of viability and pick potential and where you want it in the draft. So it just shows that one game is all it takes for the god to then become as part of the meta. Now you can talk about Eset.
Yep. Bans, then Eset, then we'll get there. Hachimen, no surprise. Baka Habwa, a reprisal from game number 1. Probably going to see what do you think, another ADC taken off the board here?
Rama, probably, if
Maybe.
they think it does. Marty's going to be in the mid lane.
But then that brings into the conversation. We might as well talk about the Eset right now here, AJ. I was, in fact, fist pumping when the Eset was locked in. Eset, I'm going to put on my Chair 2 hat for just a moment.
Okay.
Eset saw a little bit of a buff, right, in this most recent patch, and Eset's always been in that spot where you provide utility, damage, good CC. You see a little bit of a buff to Eset, all of a sudden she shoots up in stock, right?
Yeah.
See a little bit of a nerf, plummets back towards the ground. I think, I'm no theory crafter here, AJ. Maybe enough to see Eset rise back to the ranks.
Well, I think the main reason that we are going to be seeing a rise in Eset was that Terra is picked up as well. This mid 3v3 is disgusting.
Yeah.
This team fight is obnoxiously horrible to fight into for the Atlantis Leviathans. So the Styx Ferrymen definitely winning the draft in my eyes. I mean, Eset ult, as you place it on top of the beacon,
Sure.
you are winning that fight. You take it.
Yeah.
For free.
Straight up, yeah.
Nobody's fighting into an Eset ult. They back off and you just get it.
It's called the Circle of Protection, but if it's charged up, it's the Circle of Destruction. I mean, that thing can literally flip a team fight on its head.
It's the circle of, this is my space. Leave.
Kuzenbo being hovered here. In return, we see some Kuzenbo bans. Drops all the way down to the 8th pick here. But then, not to keep talking about Eset, but the conversation comes up with this Marty pickup. I mean, is that going into the hands of Zapman, Eset mid? Is that kind of where your mind's at?
Yeah, that is where my mind is at right now. Unless we see something ridiculous come out as the
Eset jungle.
I hate you.
Cyno, dude.
I hate you.
Cyno, dude.
No.
Cyno, dude.
No. Stop it.
So this is not really a joke. Like it
is not a joke.
There's a world where Eset goes in the jungle as Kuzenbo's locked in.
It is not a joke, and this is the only team where it can't be a joke for.
Yep.
I mean, every other team you're saying, right, Thor jungle, Marty ADC, Eset mid, Terra support.
Yeah, clean cut.
Yeah, Styx Ferrymen, any of these picks go anywhere. Anywhere.
You're flabbergasted, AJ. The Leviathans lock in, Hunbots. Pretty sure we know that one's going into the hands of adapting. The Styx Ferrymen thinking about it for just a moment here, letting the last pick
They're still
rattle
deciding where
around
all
in the
four of them
brain.
are going.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, this is not even a me. Eset could go into the hands of the mid laner Paul, sure. Could head towards the jungle. Kind of trying to decide, do we want to pick up an ADC here? Do we want to pick up a real jungler? Got a bunch of bank time here, about 60 seconds left for the Ferrymen to make their pick.
I mean, there's so much that's still on the table. I mean, Tyr hasn't had a look-in this game so far. And we haven't even talked about the Atlantis Leviathans roster, about where the set is going, where the Ratatoskr is going. We know where the Soul Kuzenbo and Hunbots are going, or at least we should do, unless any surprises come up from their end. It looks like it might be another ADC pick here, as the Cernunnos is going to be hovered. Going to be locked in. This will round out a nasty team fight here for the Ferrymen.
It's circles, a dunk circle, a global ultimate in the Terra and then just shred from the Marty.
I posit that only an Odin would have made that team fight better.
Ooh, that would have been pretty filthy, but you have to assume that their solo laner's already picked up here in the Thor.
Yeah, I mean, you gave it to Baskin last time and he dominated the game on it, so
Yeah.
why take it away from him again? Just give it back to him, and then the rest of the picks, I hate to say it, that is an Eset jungle.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no way you're taking Thor out of the hands of Baskin.
Yeah, Eset jungle, and then...
Marty mid.
Yeah, you have your choice of either Marty or Cernunnos,
Sure.
but I do think Marty is the better mid laner out of the two. Terra support with Cernunnos ADC to go up against the Soul. It's not the worst matchup. I mean, most ADCs will struggle against Soul simply because her poke is a little bit ridiculous compared to most ADCs, but thanks to the passive of the Spring Stance giving him an extra bit of lifesteal when he has that activated, Cernunnos should find his laning phase a little bit more comfortable.
Now, I mean, looking at Set and Rat, probably the only two flex picks here on the Leviathans. I think pretty clear here, AJ, that's going to be a Set mid, Rat heading into the solo lane. Or is it not?
Oh, no, I think the Set would be in the mid lane, and then Soul ADC, then Batz into the jungle, Rat solo.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're in agreement.
We're in agreement.
Yeah, the Rat is heading into the solo lane.
Man, there's so many assassins.
Yeah, it's a assassin dominated composition here for the Atlantis Leviathans. A bunch of L's there. Is there a particular, are you concerned about this front-loaded damage, the shred coming through from especially Set and Hunbots who kind of have to get towards that backline to make it happen?
I mean, what I'm concerned with is that the Atlantis Leviathans have drafted 3 assassins. What do assassins do? They dive in the backline. They also die. Yeah, you're right.
If I'm playing them.
I mean, especially into this composition, that's my point. They dive into the backline, and they sort of group around, and they almost are like rats as they just feast upon one target and go to the next and the next and the next one. The Ferrymen, they want you to group up on them, because they will just drop everything on top of themselves and go, you're dead, thanks for playing, we'll move on to the objectives now.
So my question, AJ, is do the Styx Ferrymen have enough peel in this composition to protect themselves from these rats gnawing at their ankles?
I think they do. I mean, between the walls coming out from the Thor and the Terra, the Earthen Fury, the Psycho Protection from Eset, the Wild Hunt from Cernunnos as well, this is a very well-drafted and balanced composition coming out from the Styx Ferrymen. And the Atlantis Leviathans, they have to get off to a snowball start in the early game in order to stand a chance, in my opinion.
Is there a particular minute where the Atlantis Leviathans are thinking, I mean, if our composition, does it fall off? Do we have to win by X time, or that's GG? Is there a time bomb ticking with this composition, AJ?
When do minions spawn?
What?
When do minions spawn?
Like immediately?
Yeah, that's the time.
Alpha Jackal chair 2ing like a champion, everyone. It's the Ferrymen, it's the Levi's, it's elimination time. The Ferrymen's getting a little spicy with us. It's Dave and it's Gore. Take it away, boys.
That's right, the Styx Ferrymen, they've got all the momentum in the world after game number 1. Baskin's going to run back to Thor, and Gore, that's threatening enough for me to be worried about the Styx Ferrymen going into this game. But I want to talk about the Ferrymen. We will, though, at some point. But that's not where I want to start. I want to start with the official breakdown of this Leviathan's composition. And it's a composition that chat is still 49% comfortable with. Going into game 2, fineokay on Batz. No, that's, oh my god, that is Ratatoskr, not Batz. Adapting is
You were
on
really
Batz.
close, though.
I was really close.
They're both assassins, and they're right next to each other.
Right. Adapting on the Batz. And then Sheento on the set mid, which is how I figured it would break down. And then I think this is an effort by the Leviathans to separate those semi-global ultimates.
And we'll see. I mean, look, this is a team, you've got a lot of dive potential, you got a lot of kill potential. Tower pushing potential might be a little shakier, and it's just because you don't have a lot of range damage that comes down from it. But you've got 3 assassins. 3 assassins in the past has absolutely run the show. The downside is the other team still has double Hunter. They have Baskin doing what Baskin had just done. And for those of you who are uninitiated...
Is it me? Am I uninitiated?
No, you've been initiated in this one. Cyno playing Eset is not as weird as you might think it. And so there's definitely... I can feel the subset of people that have seen Eset jungle and don't know what's going on anymore when Cyno locks it in has definitely lessened.
Yep.
But I'm still partially, like, sometimes I'm still in there where I'm just like, you know what? I've seen him play this, and I can't tell you. I mean, I love Eset. You've got a silence, you've got a stun, you've got good damage, you've got circle of protection still. There's a lot of things that you're going to bring. You're going to lack some things that an assassin might want, which is something that the Leviathans are going to have in spades. But when it comes to team fight, that's what the Ferrymen have, and they have it well. Oh my god, Baskin!
Ooh, if one more of those hammer taps had connected, and then the auto attack, that's maybe a solo kill for first blood. Love the look from Cyno in mid, by the way, and I love the fear that he struck into adapting. It was a blink forward, an immediate attempted stun, detonated it right off send-off, but not only did he not get a kill, he set the stage for a kill onto himself a few minutes later. Sheento plus adapting equals first blood. It's a Styx Ferrymen jungler dropping.
Yeah, so remember the thing I said about how they have the things assassins like to do, but in spades?
Oh, yeah.
That's the best example of it. Paul should not have been out of tower, honestly, and the fact that he stays alive is a huge deal. But that's what adapting and Sheento are going to bring. I mean, this is going to be a mean 2v2. Cyno, again, you've got a lot of good damage between him and Paul. In late game, it's going to be sick team fights. Right now, you are a level 3 Eset, which does not really inspire confidence in pretty much anything. I mean, you've got a decent silence. Spirit Ball's not doing a whole ton of damage. Wing Gust isn't going to do too much. You need to kind of enter the farm chamber for a little while, get to where you can feel more confident. Level 5 is definitely going to be a big deal for you. Burst damage from a Circle of Protection from a proper build out of an Eset can be a really big game changer. But you're not going to have that big dive potential unless your blink is up, or if you catch someone out with a stun. There is still turnaround potential. I think that most moments like that, if the Leviathans do that at level 15, let's say, you get hit with a silence, a spirit ball, and by that point, all you need is a little bit of damage from somebody else on your team, and they're just dead. So the Ferrymen are definitely going to be able to help fight back. Leviathans have a composition, though, that can absolutely dive and run the show for a little while. First blood, maybe gloss over it. It's going to be a nice little advantage, especially going on to Sheento, who I think this team loves to play through a lot of the time. But when you start to get towards late game, you got to dunk, you got to fear no evil. It still might be lacking some of that range damage. That might cause a lot of trouble just because of some burn and maybe CC that the Ferrymen have. But the right engagement, Paul or Cyclone are dead before the team can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
If not, they've used their safety relics and had to back away or had to use their ultimates. It should be an uncomfortable game for the Ferrymen if the Leviathans do things right.
Yeah, it's funny because we're kind of flipping the conversation from game one. Devil Hunter composition, they should scale up later on, but on the other side, you've got all this dive that could really make its way in, fear no evil. I mean, it's a really similar discussion. It's just the team compositions have kind of flip-flopped, but you are talking about some very specific differences from the way that the Styx Ferrymen drafted in game one to what the Leviathans have drafted here in game number 2. Ronngyu on the Kuzenbo, Gore, is somewhere where my eyes tend to go. Even in a triple assassin composition, I still find something else that stands out to me. Kuzenbo's not been prioritized for a little while. Started to see some bans roll through. Actually, for the first couple days was in the top 10 as far as pick ban rate goes, the Kuzenbo has been. Hasn't had to go back to base just yet. Great at disruption and generally being annoying. And you know what? I think that's what you want to support to be able to do.
If my memory serves me well, like you said,
How often
not
does
only
it?
Actually pretty often.
All right, good.
Banned a lot, like you said. Played one game, won that game. Has not really been a high priority since then. I mean, It was really interesting because of that dynamic he's brought.
Baskin, though, might be getting ganked here by adapting. He sure is. And the hammer is enough.
No way.
It's a no channel on the Anvil of Dawn, and it's good because Baskin would have been burnt. Adapting sends his ultimate to solo. And Baskin waves goodbye on his way out, and Baskin is actually stuck around. Hits fineokay with the double tap on his hammer. But Cyno without the semi-global, without the Through the Cosmos, or an Anvil of Dawn, he'd just have to walk over into lane, blink, and a Spirit Ball forward. So Baskin stays alive, sticks around, and adapting takes a swing, but comes up empty-handed.
You know, there's a world where maybe you see the dunk, but now you get it now.
Oh, it's Baskin who's stunned, and the kill rolls through anyway. fineokay drops in, and it's Sheento on the rotation over. Because we thought they had left. We got pump faked. We're thinking that everyone's disengaged. It's all good. Baskin should have gone back to base. It's another kill for the Levi's.
Yeah, you can have one Miracle Hammer escape every 5 minutes. That's all that you're permitted.
We're on cooldown.
It was really, I mean, impressive, right? To just deal with the fact that you get Fear No Evil and just calmly teleport back out. Not only that, but walk forward to double tap fineokay. Like, the damage that Baskin has is incredibly solid. And I think that's not what we're lacking in. Unfortunately, like you said, he sticks around, he's relatively low health, and fineokay says, okay, look, you double semi-globaled us last time. I'm going to show you what it's like to get semi-global. That distance and the capability of closing it down. One thing I've always loved about a Ratatoskr ult that you're just not getting from, maybe something like the Thor ult. I like the knock-up. Stuns are nice, but that knock-up just feels oppressive in the right moments, and I feel like that's exactly one of those moments. There's no true chance to escape. You've got a couple of assassins diving, and not a lot of opportunity to disengage.
Adapting with his last bit of mana has a Fear No Evil for Cyno, but Cyno's got a double stun for the double assassins that are running him down. It's on the Styx Ferrymen side of the jungle. Sheento has just been so active, but my goodness, Baskin on a dunk has hand-delivered 4 members of the Ferrymen to the Leviathans mid laner. And the scales tilt back just a bit. Finally, it's offensive aggression and a nice steal on the cooldown camp for Baskin. After a forgettable moment a few moments ago, it's a great one for Baskin to get back into the game.
And sometimes it's all you need. Plus, I actually think really helpful to get that kill onto Cyno more than anything. And it's just because I want to see the Eset get some items online to be more active, to be able to provide more for the team. Baskin's damage output has actually been really solid. And so I think that a little extra gold maybe helps him, but let Cyno cook, right? Get him to the late game, try to get the team to the late game. And if they're going at this pace, we might just find it. I want to see some groupings. I think fineokay is on a good spot to rotate. Kuzenbo, as we can see right here, can play very aggressively. Adapting has been very loose with these ultimates, but in a perfect way.
What happens here?
But you're losing fineokay in response to some of those things, and suddenly maybe it's not as, maybe not as good as it was starting to feel, even though you got those first 2 kills clean.
Yeah, Spear of Desolation. Cyno's got enough. A little extra flat pen early in the laning phase. And a wall. fineokay was not able to use his ultimate, and so it tells me some sudden burst made its way to the doorstep of this Ratatoskr. Styx Ferrymen, they even up the score here. Feels like Eset Jungle's one of those coin flip style picks, doesn't it? I mean, it really got refined in the forges of the SEC for Cyno a little bit last year when we started seeing this pick a little bit more often. Been creative all throughout his career, don't get me wrong, but brought it up to the SPL level. Didn't see it during Worlds. That was a lot of Thanatos from him, but feels like a coin flip. And right now, it's coming up for the Styx Ferrymen after what was a brutal first death. Now a couple kills in a row has pulled a 1-level lead over Adapting. Can't let that slow down Adapting, though. Need to keep seeing this Batz active on the map as we have in the first 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I love how much he's been throwing out his ultimates, and I use the word loose, but just how willing he has been to drop them, even just for a single kill, a little bit of pressure. And something that you have to worry about, I mean, if you're fighting forward as the Ferryman, it is playing into that big Fear No Evil from Adapting. Eventually, you're going to have to start worrying about what fineokay has. There's a good amount of peel, a good amount of setup for the Leviathans. And so definitely some things I can see going well. You have to also be careful in these trades. That is a lucky, not even a lucky dodge, just a good dodge from fineokay.
He might have died. Is that wallet connected, double tap?
Yeah, he would have been
Berserker's Barrage, that might have been enough to kill Fino. But you're right. Got to be careful in those trades, Score. And Baskin really set this pace in game 1 on this Thor. Yep. Ended things, took things over. Ganked early by Adapting. Have not seen the Batz back on this side of the map since then.
And you know,
this doesn't count.
Last game.
Oh no, he's about to come to this side of the map.
Well, and honestly, how well is it going to work out? I mean, you don't have beads if you're Baskin, but you do have Cyno.
Whoa, Adapting dodges out the silence and the stun. Well played by the Batz. Baskin and Cyno group up there. They're at least able to confirm the buff. But nice little bit of flashiness by Adapting. Goes back, gets Brawler's beat stick, so some anti-heal over the horizon for this Atlantis Leviathans team fight. We're a minute and a half away from considering the Stygian Beacon. And whether the Leviathans want to show up more for it this game than they did last game, these teams did not feel the need to group as 4 or 5 in the same way we did the SPL squads earlier today.
I love this.
Gold Fury, though, that is the grouping for the Leviathans. The Ferrymen steal it away. Then it's CycloneSpin who wanders on in. And he will send out Bramble Blast for 204 damage in Aurora, you always look at his player cam and he's warming up the hands. You know, he does the hand rub. Things are getting good. That was a feeling good hand rub that Aurora had. His dual lane partner steals away the Gold Fury. Gore, that almost exactly equalizes the game.
I couldn't think of a better time to go back to Aror to see him.
Was he doing it again?
He was rubbing his hands together. That one was a get back into the zone after having your teammate make a good play hand rub. And look, that's devastating is the only word I can think of. It's not catastrophic. It doesn't ruin anything for the Leviathans. It takes away their lead. But Cyno doesn't have circular protection. That is your one big opening. Your team is not going to look great around objectives. It is good for team fights. You've got a lot of burn. If you're left alone around an objective, you can get rid of it. But Secure is going to be on the other side every single fight. As long as Cyno exists, as long as Cyno has ult, that's something you can't take. So not only do you not secure it, you lose it to a very small ability, which hurts, so it strips away your lead. And Cyno now gets to keep that ult. You didn't get punished if you're Cyno for dropping it around solo. Didn't have to use it for the beacon, which means you got it for Pyromancer. So if you're looking to start taking things into your favor, suddenly Cyno is in a really good spot. I also really love the build right now, from both Paul and from Cyno. And Paul, you're going to be throwing out your abilities a little bit more. The breastplate feels nice for mana. But for both of them, it's just the physical prots. It could have been any physical protection item there, and I'm going to love it because Ronngyu and Zap aren't going to be joining for a little while, and you're not as worried about their damage if you're a mage or if you're the mid laner as you are the 3 assassins who are going to be diving you. So both of you are going to be benefiting from this, and as long as you are sticking together, somewhat playing together, a lot of people are going to benefit from Cyno as well, and Eset plays well in the group, plays well with the team. So this feels like it's just a build that is going to stifle some of these assassins, stop them from maybe getting a kill. It's going to leave survivability there for Cyno where otherwise it wouldn't have been. And that gives some small opportunities to really turn fights around.
fineokay, stunned by Cyno, and it's a max range stun. Through the Cosmos will be enough this time.
Yeah.
Wrench of Yggdrasil, enough for safety. CycloneSpin, he's got to drop a Wild Hunt. Beads get used, but CycloneSpin able to stand and fight. Sheento lives. The sliver of HP, and unfortunately for the Styx Ferrymen ADC, no one else from the Ferrymen on that side of the map. Anvil of Dawn is going to get charged by Baskin here.
Dunk him.
Where are the Leviathans standing? No, just in range. Goodness, adapting. You got a stun from Anvil of Dawn, a stun from a wall, a stun from a Spirit Ball, and one more kill for the Styx Ferrymen. They're essentially trading the same thing on either side of the map, though. Leviathans get 1 kill on left and a tier 1. Ferrymen get a kill on right, also for a tier 1.
But they should get Pyro.
But they should also get the Pyromancer. Good collapse in, outside of maybe a steal from fineokay, but it looks like Baskin has done enough to provide some zone.
Well, fineokay, yeah, with no ult, it becomes a lot more difficult. It should be just an easy pop from Cyno, yeah. That's pretty much what every objective, it should be that lackluster. It should not be a very big surprise because the Ferrymen just have better secure. The biggest thing the Leviathans are going to be able to do, and unfortunately when you lose adapting like that right before the fight, there's not much in the realm of possibility for you, and you have to be careful right now if you're fineokay. But I think that they are going to be looking on the Leviathans, that is, for the fight. They are going to be looking for disruption, force Cyno to ult super early and get something done.
That early Spirit Ball from Cyno might make all the difference. And the wall from Baskin keeps his teammate alive, but not for much longer. This is a 4-man dive from the Leviathans. Gotta clean up these kills. They do. And it's a better grouping from the Order side. Tier 1 tower not under threat for the moment. It's just Baskin and Cyno, and they played that about as well as they could. There's just simply too much from the Leviathans on the other side of the fight.
That's what 3 assassins and a Kuzenbo should be doing to any mage that exists in the game. It should just be, a simple, clean dive. If you have a little more peel there, you had mentioned it. You play it about as well as you can for Cyno and for Baskin. If you have Aegis, maybe it's a different conversation. You actually get a kill, you live there, but the blink actually hadn't really got a whole lot of value. I've seen 1 blink earlier to this game, and obviously it's on cooldown now, so Cyno's definitely been using it. I just haven't seen it be like crazy change for him. But that's what they should be doing every single time. Sheento now doesn't have a lot of his safety, right? Relics are down, Beads is going to be back up in 25, so some little window of opportunity. But if you have like a Terra there, all of a sudden that fight just does not work out that well from the Leviathans. Really grouped up, that means you get either the ultimate or you just get some walls that collapse in and stun some people, save some damage, separate the fight. So the Ferrymen, I still feel good about their grouping. That being said, that's not what the Leviathans are looking for. They don't care about your group. They want to come in, they want to fight, and they want to kill. And as long as they can do exactly that, it should be enough to rip apart one member of the Ferrymen, and that's kind of their goal. They've got good CC for it. They've got good engage for it, 40 seconds before the blink is up for adapting. And so in 40 seconds, I wouldn't mind seeing them try to go for another kill and see what they can do. But that is what the Leviathans want and are going to try to repeat as many times as possible. Ferrymen, once they start grouping as 5, which with Fury up on left, might be pretty soon. You've already got 4 over there. Baskin kind of hovering around in the right side jungle, but was looking towards left. It's also a question of how much do you want to go for the Primal Fury. It feels like with a Circle of Protection, Ferryman, like, I almost egregiously would have called for it at 14 minutes after they got the pick on right. You knew that there was aggression from the Leviathans on left. Appropriately, they just go for the Pyromancer. But, I mean, you get one pick anytime in the next minute. As long as Cyno has ult, you should be able to go for a Fire Giant, at least force the Leviathans into another engagement.
Should. One thing we haven't seen, Gore, in either Game 1 or Game 2, is this ridiculous, like, 15-minute lead, right? It feels like it's been 2,000-3,000 gold around the 15, 16, 17-minute mark all throughout the set this set. Both teams have done a great job of keeping things stable. We're in a very similar spot here in this game. However, 25+ is when the barn doors came off in Game 1. Baskin, they use Anvil of Dawn, remains safe this time. Archdruid's Fury, completed for the Thor. Saw this item a couple times on different picks throughout this weekend. Little extra damage in a team fight is never a bad thing, especially if you're doing some basic attacking, which Baskin is. See if you can get some value out of it. Stygian Beacon started up. It's only Ronngyu here, but an envelopment from the Leviathans, left and right, starting to pinch in towards mid. Aror is shoved into Zapman here. He uses his dash. Just dancing behind the monolith. Smart play, mitigates a bit of damage, and maybe needed to mitigate all of it. Double stun once more from Cyno, and a double wild hunt, but the Leviathans scurrying away from the front line of the fight. The Ferrymen get their second beacon of the game.
And that's 2 of them. That just feels clean. And again, you know, you start to notice some of the effects as they stack. This is a double hunter team that just got bonus structure damage twice now. I mean, you give them Fire Giant, and we're talking 5 towers that should be gone. Good pickup from Ronngyu, at least to get the beads. I wouldn't mind seeing him get aggressive.
Fear no evil from adapting has started us off. Aror! Oh my, he somehow lives, but no, fineokay has fixed that situation easily. Takes the semi-global ultimate, however, to get in. And will he get out? That's now the question. Looks like he's able to dodge to the side. Cyno doesn't hit the stun. And it looks like fineokay will be just fine. Baskin can't go back in on the other side of the fight. And the Leviathans have cleanly picked up Aror. Clean may be an overstatement, but without losing any of their team members, those are the small mistakes that'll start to cost the Ferrymen as those death timers get longer.
Yeah, they get a kill. It opens up, well, I would even say opens up opportunities on the map. You might, right now, with who you have on left, be able to get aggressive. Take the Fury. I mean, Zap's over there, a lot of good damage.
Fino.
I'm valuing the Pyromancer right now more than that, but like you said, fineokay's in the neighborhood.
Cyno doesn't have his ultimate. Styx Ferrymen get the Pyromancer. That silence was nice. It's another dash in from fineokay, though. He's finally overtaken Baskin for top damage in the game. These
He's
solo
going for a
laners
dunk, though.
just been brawling out constantly. Might need to dash away from the dunk, or you read it well from Baskin. Made his way over into mid. Manticore spikes on both of these solo laners. Again, that's been a popular item throughout the weekend. And notice what just happens though. Styx Ferrymen, they lose their support. They get the Pyromancer despite a little pressure from fineokay. And the Leviathans were not immediately on the Primal Fury. So really, unless my brain is forgetting something, essentially ended up being a pick for a Pyro. And there's still a chance for the Styx Ferrymen to contest the Fury.
I would argue maybe even more, right? Because of the fact that as long as Cyno exists, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. As long as he exists and has ult, he's going to be good there.
What does a broken record sound like, Gore?
Well, I guess in...
like that.
Yeah, probably.
Just
I guess it depends on how
broken
it breaks.
is.
Yeah, because like if the needle's broken, it's probably just like a screeching sound. Might ruin the record too. That's
What
not
is
gonna
that?
be good
I'm
for
just
you.
kidding. I'm not going to.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that into the mic. God, man, can you imagine?
I can. I'm sure you and I, over the years, have done something like that. Much to the sadness of chat. Primal Fury for the Styx Ferrymen. Uh-oh. But the Leviathans are in for the fight after the fight. Baskin up for maybe just a bit of air coverage. And actually, maybe a reinitiation. Dunks onto one. Out goes Sheento. And Sheento started this game off speedily. Well, fineokay looking for CycloneSpin as well. So to jump onto Aror and a dash away. So many tense moments in a composition like this where both teams, they go in, find the dunk, a little bit of poking and prodding, but able to get themselves out and alive. But really, over the course of the last 5 minutes, Gore, the Styx Ferrymen get both of the objectives after the pick onto Aror. The Leviathans maybe get some map pressure, but otherwise empty-handed.
If it's going to be just objective-based gameplay, Ferrymen just have it in the bag. Their composition's just better for it. They've got good burn, double hunter. You put them in front of a fire giant, they're going to take it down to 1/3 HP, not instantaneously, super quickly. And then Cyno just ults and they have it. And Leviathans are in a better spot to try and find fights. I honestly wouldn't have minded to see this team, this fight more often early. But everybody's picked up a kill for good reason. I think that you've got a lot of good dives. So you do still have a lot of opportunity. I mean, all you have to do is catch someone off guard. No relics right now for CycloneSpin. That's a pretty easy opening, pretty easy kill. But getting there, having the right people in the right position to make sure that you capitalize on it. CycloneSpin's playing incredibly safe. Nobody's going to be diving that deep on the left side if the Ferrymen are grouped up the way they are. Because if you see anybody on Cyclone when he's over there near his tier 2, that's a free fire giant immediately for you. And at the pace, again, that this game's going, I mean, we maybe see one more fight. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not until the next Pyromancer. That could be the big tone indicator for a fire giant. Whether you get the kills immediately and get to jump into the FG right then, or if it is the big blanket statement, okay, Ferrymen get to walk up and set it, but that is the opening if Cyno drops ult for you to try and get aggressive, make the Eset feel uncomfortable, force Paul, ideally in the next 30 seconds, force CycloneSpin to feel really uncomfortable and probably kill him off. Those are your real objectives, your real openings. Some of that's going to be on adapting, blink in, fear no evil. Some of it's going to be on Sheento, just jump into the back dive, have the damage necessary. I mean, Set can absolutely erase a health bar. Might need a little bit of help. Might need a lot to try and set it up. I mean, Ferrymen haven't been giving the Leviathans the opportunities. All their kills have felt like picks so far, individuals, kind of isolated events. Last game we saw what happens when you don't team fight too much. So the Ferrymen are in a really good spot to stay aggressive. Their builds are starting to get completed. CycloneSpin even sold his starter to make sure he has a little extra towards this fight here. And he's rotated in. This should be a really good pickup for the Ferrymen.
You would think, but with a fire giant around the corner and maybe a Titan clash soon, love to keep those runic bombs in your pocket. Stun over the wall from Baskin. fineokay dunks onto Paul. He's getting melted down over in the mid lane though. He's got to dash away and he's able to do so. Up goes Baskin. Who's his target? No one, despite who he was looking at, gets stunned by the Anvil of Dawn. It'll be a wall though that catches out Zapman, but it's on the wrong side. Fear no evil from adapting. Slows down the onslaught of the Styx Ferrymen. It is disengage time for the Leviathans. But Ronngyu, Sheento, they've got something else in mind. It's a circular protection through now from Cyno. And it's kept his team alive for a little bit longer. But Zapman, unhappy with the direction of this fight, takes matters into his own hands. Gets a kill onto Paul, but this time Zap will be walled off on the wrong side. And we'll go 1 for 1 in mid.
Look, Paul dies, and all credit to the Leviathans for chasing that down. But that man has ice in his veins for how many times? I mean, there were several instances, just the engage from fineokay, where maybe what he's fishing for, the goal, is to get the beads, get an Aegis, get a relic. Doesn't pop him. then he starts to feel a little bit of pressure. Still doesn't pop him. It's not until he absolutely has to that either of those get dropped. CycloneSpin maintains both of his. Bead's still up for Cyno and Baskin. Maybe if you're seeing, unfortunately for Aror, there was nothing he could do about it. But during that Fear No Evil, maybe if you pop a Beads, you get a kill onto the Leviathans a little faster. Baskin actually has to play carefully here.
He will. Get up into the sky. No, he's
No
not
way.
going
Oh.
back in.
Oh.
No. Boy, okay. Whoa, goodness. I'm getting all turned around here. The Leviathans pick up the Pyromancer, and Gore, that is the Leviathans' first neutral objective of the game.
Yeah.
2 Pyros to the Ferrymen, 3 Furies to the Ferrymen. And that is not the Fire Giants being taken down. That is the Titans unleashing from both bases. And Gore, this could be intriguing. The Titans will be on the left side of the map,
Yeah.
wandering down, while there is a Fire Giant very much in the realm of possibility to be burned down by either team over on the opposite side of the map. Neither team wants to leave the Fire Giant uncontested, but could one team suddenly prioritize pushing with the Titans instead of grouping around the FG? Seems like a game of pump fake. See who's committing on one side or the other.
Now, Ferrymen got all 3, so their Titan's inherently a little stronger here. And I was going to say I wouldn't mind seeing them leave it alone. I also don't mind seeing them push with it to get aggressive. Both teams foregoing the Fire Giant right now in favor of this, but you have to think about what you could get. I mean, uncontested with all 3 and a double Hunter. I mean, if you just let the Ferrymen push while you like, if Leviathans
now,
get
maybe?
the FG,
This will get
I
burned
would have made
quickly,
that
though.
trade 100% of the time. Ferrymen could have knocked down a Phoenix if they were left alone, so I like that the Leviathans defend it. But now you're just kind of scattered to the wind,
Yeah.
hoping that you can defend.
Look, I mean, this is going to take. Zapman just now finishes off the Titan. Do the Styx Ferrymen immediately burn this? You have a Circle of Protection and a Runic Bomb and double Hunters at the 27-minute mark. You've got to melt this objective. Baskin, again. Air coverage up in the sky. He sees everything. fineokay's in. Circle of Protection confirms the Fire Giants. It's wonderfully played by the Styx Ferrymen. But now you got to fight to win.
Oh my
A Fear No
God.
Evil starts it, but Baskin finishes it. Sheento, though, still swinging away on this fight. Paul stands his ground alongside Aror, alongside Baskin. And the Ferrymen may get all the spoils on the right side. It's a Fire Giant, and for now, 2 kills. Ronngyu makes a 3rd and a double for Paul. Cyno just needs a slow, a stun, and a wing gust. And it's another one for the Styx Ferrymen. FG +4, and it should be 5 in just a moment.
You might turn one around if you're Zap, though. Roar, a little bit of healing, a lot of damage from Paul. Now, like you said, you're just looking for the last. Okay, he's got it. And you can't doubt him. It's a nice little deicide for him. Not only that, you get to push forward. I mean, this is going to be
Lots of towers,
a free amount of pressure. I think you go for a Phoenix here. You've got a minion wave. Should be relatively easy. Not having CycloneSpin does hurt. But Paul's going to be able to push down on right. Phoenix and mid should go down. With this amount of time, you might be able to wiggle over, meet at right Phoenix, push it, but you've got to get out of there the instant you've knocked it down. You got a couple of minions to work with. Biggest downside right now is there's still a tier 1, tier 2 on left, but that is a huge play. I mean, not only in kills, not only in Fire Giant, but I think it showcases everything you want to see from the Ferrymen.
Think about how it started what? With how they played around the Titan push, right? They realized their Titan was going to push a bit stronger. They realized they could clear that side of the map. It was going to take Zapman a moment. They had that momentary 5v4. From that point on, it's just get out of the fight, and they do you one better. They win the fight.
And that starts, like you said, with such an easy decision-making process for the Ferrymen, because in one side, you go push with your Titan, and you get a Phoenix for free, even if they get Fire Giant, because you got double Hunter and a strong Titan, plus the structure shred that you've got from all 3 of these buffs. And then the other option is what we saw, right? Okay, they come to meet you, and then, right, you just walk over to Fire Giant. You've got pit control and secure control anyway. That's going to be very easy for you. Was a little hairy there in the middle, and it's specifically because of the dive that they have, but adapting got deleted almost instantly. Sheento can jump into the back, but only so much damage that Eset can do on his own. And specifically, the counter-engage and survivability. I mean, Cyno silence, Cyno with stun, Aror with his ult, Aror with walls. Like, they have so much that can just keep Paul or Cyclone or sometimes both alive. that for the Leviathans, unfortunately, while it was, I think, a very good engage, outside of the fact that adapting gets deleted instantly, the longevity of that fight's going to go to the Ferrymen every single time. So I feel bad for him a little bit that is just unfortunate. You know, flirting with death. I mean, Paul almost dies for what feels like a full 40 seconds, but he doesn't. Has a lot of turnaround damage. Now you're fighting 2 Phoenixes down. It gives it a lot of advantage. Baskin can try to set up for the next fight, go up into the air. Cyno, all it takes is a stray stun. Still has Circle of Protection. They could really play aggressively here on the Ferryman just to get this last Phoenix.
fineokay dashes forward, but he's caught out by a stun from a couple of sources there. Oni fire minions in mid and in right, and then Oni minions over on the left side. And triple assassins, they've got plenty of damage to clear, but fineokay, you know, classed as an assassin, but he's tanky. But he wants to do assassin things. Adapting, chunked. So is Ronngyu. fineokay, where are you going? Oh my goodness, I didn't even see Baskin dunk in. That's out of nowhere. That caught me by surprise. And seemingly adapting as well. Another one for the Styx Ferrymen. Rack them up. And the Ferrymen obliterate the Atlantis Leviathans after the Leviathans had such a great Phase 1 playoffs. They will bow out early from SMITE Masters. And the Ferrymen, the tournament team, they've arrived and they've 2-0'd the Levi's.
Not only that, I mean, look, that was just clean team play. Look at the excitement, man.
Look at Aror go.
Look, you know that you got to be feeling a little bit of that based on how this season has been going leading up to this point, right? It has been rough for them, trying to find out the meta. Even the beginning of last game, at least draft-wise, I was starting to think, I don't know, this feels a little Leviathans heavy, especially after what we saw during the playoffs. But sometimes that is just the level of play that you're going to bring on the day. Yep. And not only that, I just think that the way they group up just felt so much better every single time. Not to mention Baskin. Like, I mean, we could probably make a Thor montage just off of what he did throughout that game. And I mean, even at the very end, that's the opener. You had mentioned it, like, okay, a little bit of poke here, a little bit of poke there. Adapting was falling back, and then you just pan back, and suddenly Baskin's there, wall, hammer, you're dead, and it's a 4v5. Yeah, of course you're going to take that. You got an Oni minion wave with you, and you had called it Oni fire, in mid, still pushing in right, still pushing in. I mean, that was the most open team fight that you were going to have. And it's because this Thor just constantly getting into the backline and causing too much trouble.
We are speed running day number 3 of SMITE Masters here. And goodness, the Styx Ferrymen have kept that pace up 2-0 over the Atlantis Leviathans, and they will move on. Gordon, I have talked enough, though. The desk will take it from here.
It is 2-0s across the board for the SPL so far here today. Alpha Jackal with the Styx Ferrymen finding a 2-0 victory over the Atlantis Leviathans. I don't know what to call it, if it's Aror Black Magic, if it's this combination of Cyclone and Paul and Aror all mixing together. But when it's time to buckle down and make it happen, somehow, whether it's Splice or whether it's the Styx Ferrymen, this team makes it happen.
I mean, for me, I think that second game comes down to draft difference. I mean, I said it on the desk straight away. I thought that the draft coming out for the Styx Ferrymen won hand over fist compared to the draft coming out from the Atlantis Leviathans. And that final team fight proved exactly what I was saying. I mean, 3 assassins trying to dive onto an Eset and to the Circle of Protection into the Earthen Fury from Terra. They did no damage.
And we saw at the end, even Dave called it, didn't even notice that Baskin was in the air on this Thor, making this Thor look unbelievable in this 2-game set. And of course, Eset jungle, man. Is this going to be invading my ranked games? Cyno's been pulling Eset jungle out for the past couple of seasons now. And hopefully it's not going to make any appearances in my personal rank games, but boy, oh boy, did it sure show up here at SMITE Masters.
I mean, it depends what rank you are. Are you a high rank, you know, Silver 2?
Oh, no, we're talking like Bronze 4, bro.
Oh, okay. It will definitely be invading your games.
Phenomenal. But, I mean, talk me through it. How did it show up here in game number 2?
I mean, it had a slow start. It got first blooded and, you know, it struggled to really start to influence the game from the beginning. But as the game grew and as you saw the build coming out from Cyno in the jungle, as Sovereignty is one of his items on there as well, just provided so much utility, and that's the whole reason for this pick. He didn't pick it for damage, didn't pick it for objective secure, picked it for pure utility and just to make sure that the team fight was in the bag for his team.
And, you know, I really appreciate how Paul also pivoted from a damage-dealing healing hell in game number 1 onto a more aggressive hunter in this Marty in the middle lane. Talk me through that pivot.
That is something which Paul just brings. He's able to go from one playstyle to the next in the flip of a switch. It takes some mid laners time to learn that skill, Paul seems to have had it from day number 1, and he's utilized that throughout his SMITE career to be able to become a world champion. There's nothing more to really say other than that's what Paul brings. That is the Paul factor.
Well, unfortunately now, the Atlantis Leviathans, it's a single limb for the SPL boys. They've been knocked out of this tournament. The Styx Ferrymen will be progressing on forward. Is there anything in particular that you loved seeing here from the Ferrymen in games 1 and 2 that you think they should hammer down on moving forward in SMITE Masters?
I think I like their drafts overall. I like the fact that they gave the Thor over towards Baskin and had it as a flex pick option. I don't think they're going to be getting that next week. I really don't. I think throughout this next week of scrims, that's probably going to be banned away from them consistently. Sure. I like the oddball picks in jungle as well. I mean, we had a Ratatoskr. We also had the Eset jungle as we saw in that last game. But just keep the unpredictability in drafts, and that will take them far.
Well, AJ, I love your thoughts on the unpredictability from the Styx Ferrymen, but I'd love to find out what the heart and soul of this team, Aror himself, has to say.
Aror, the heart and soul of the Styx Ferrymen.
Awesome.
Thoughts on that statement? Are you the heart and soul of the Styx Ferrymen squad?
I have no idea, but it's cool to hear that.
It is cool to hear that. And Aurora, you very well might be. I talked to Cyno a bit before the game. He said the team worked on the early game a bit over the last couple of weeks. Do you feel like you cleaned up some of the issues that you might have felt were there during the playoffs?
Game 1, for sure. Game 2, little bit bumpy, but we got it done still. The biggest thing we talked about from the last playoffs that we played in were just avoiding early deaths, because I think like 70% of our games in the playoffs, we died early, at least once or twice in one lane. And if we didn't die, like there was one game where we lost our purple buff at level 1, which is even worse than dying. So,
right.
Yeah. So we had a lot of those things happen. We know we're a really good team when it comes to team fighting, and as long as we don't have those early deaths, it helps our team out a lot.
And even if you have the early deaths, you find a way to turn it around. You see a Ratatoskr, a Batz, and a Eset get locked in, triple assassin composition. When you see that in picks and bans, what do you think the mindset has to be? Do you change up your play style? How do you play into a composition like that?
I mean, we've been scrimming on this patch for like a couple weeks now, and it's pretty common, I'd say. Like a lot of dive comps are happening with like either triple assassin or just anything with access to backline. Game 1, they didn't play that way. They had an interesting comp. The Kali, the little rat, tried to kill me the entire in every team fight. He was like chasing me around trying to kill an elephant.
You got mid guardian early, right?
Yeah.
You slammed it.
I guess I was his target the entire game because every single team fight that little rat just came at me.
You were the target a few times, I can confirm. But look, it looked great from the Styx Ferrymen. You show up, you advance here in SMITE Masters. Always a pleasure, Aurora. And we'll see you in the next round. Back to the desk.
Thank you.
Well, the rat not taking down Aurora, the chunk, calm, cool, and collected, seeing the Styx Ferrymen in their 2-0 victory over the Levi's here, AJ.
Yeah, very comfortable victory for them, even if that second game looked a little bit dicey at times. But as you mentioned, they do advance in the bracket, and they advance to next week.
That's right. We still have one more set here today, and of course another entire day of the first little bit of SMITE Masters here. That'll kick off tomorrow, but still a little bit more SMITE to play here today. You see the Gilded Gladiators and the Eldritch Hounds will be visiting that part of the bracket tomorrow, a little bit later on. See the Ferrymen there taking out the Leviathans as well. And a little bit later on today, we're going to be seeing the final sets of SCC here as the NA hopes and dreams have died with the Valhalla Valkyries and brought us all the way to the end here. Hexmambo, Niflheim Wargs.
Yeah, we saw that set earlier this week as well when Hexmambo did take down the Niflheim Wargs 2-0 to send the Wargs down to the losers bracket, but they fought their way through the Valhalla Valkyries, have earned their spot in the next SPL bracket. Don't forget, this match coming up is a placement match, so regardless of win or lose, we will see both of these teams again tomorrow. Winner is going to be involved in our first match of the day against the Gladiators. The loser will be involved in our second match today against the Hounds tomorrow.
The Wargs have put on a show for us here so far at SMITE Masters, AJ. Do you think the set after set after sets, taking it to 3 games more often than not, do you think that the Wargs are starting to feel a little beat down, or do you think they're only revving up for more?
Hey, listening to what they've been speaking about in the lobby outside, they're still full of energy. They're still raring to go, and they're feeling even better than how they were feeling before they faced Hexmambo the first time.
And speaking of the Hexmambo, how do you think their mentals are going into the final set of that? It's been a long day of SMITE. We've had some long, dragged-out games. Think they're feeling fresh and ready to roll?
I think they're feeling confident, and they'll go into the same mentality they went into the first game with the Wargs with, and I think they'll come out with a 2-0.
The Niflheim Wargs fighting for placement against the Hex Mambo. That's coming at you in just a minute. Stick around. We'll see you then.